What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on this channel. My name is Chase. I'm a church planter that just recently launched a church in Northeast Ohio. And whether you are a church planter, thinking about being a part of a church plant, you know a church planter, in this video I want to talk about some of the unique ways that we work towards planting a church in the middle of a some of the things that I think worked out pretty well, some of the things that I wish we would have done a little bit differently, and some of the lessons that I learned. So let's talk about it. All right, so if you're new to this channel, I actually just, at the beginning of last year, started what I was hoping would be a new series called Birth of a New Church. Well, hit, and just like with everything else in the world, had to push pause on that video series, but also the launch of our church. We were supposed to launch on March 29th of 2020, and now, actually, just now, this coming Sunday, March 28th, 2021, is gonna be our first Sunday back in person. And so I wanna talk a little bit about what the last year has looked like being a church that's been online. Now, I kind of divide the online ministry period of our church into three different phases. I guess as a church planter, everything's got to be in phases, right? So if you don't know, our church, we're called the Chapel Nordonia. We're part of a larger family of churches called the Chapel. There's 6 other campuses all around Northeast Ohio, and together we make up the Chapel. And so when everything first shut down in Ohio in March of 2020, all of the campuses came together, and we had just one single service that was put together every single week. We had a different person preaching. I preached the Good Friday service. We had people from the different worship teams coming together to form these single services. That lasted all the way until almost the end of June. June 14th, I want to say, was the last Sunday that we did that. And towards the end of that, we had each pastor was preaching like their own sermon, but the worship was still all combined, and all the announcements and the whole service was one service. But so that was the first online phase of our church. Well, it's a phase that I'm glad is over, as I'm sure that pretty much everyone in our church is. There were a lot of fun, unique opportunities. Like, it was great to be able to hear the other pastors preach that most people in our individual campuses don't get to hear on a regular basis, or to see our worship teams together. It was just a kind of a cool experience, but that was just for the first few months. And then on June 21st, 2020, all the rest of our campuses returned to in-person worship. However, we, first of all, hadn't fully launched yet, but second, we didn't have a place to go back to. Before the pandemic, we were meeting during our pre-launch phase at an elementary school in our community, and we weren't able to go back there. And so we were kind of waiting and hoping to get back into the elementary school. And so we had people in our community meeting in different homes that would watch these services on Sunday morning all at the same time, and then talk about the service after. And you know, some of those worked out really well. I kind of had in my mind that it was going to look just like the early church, right? People meeting in these house churches and just this real authentic community. And last summer, people were just so hungering to get out, to be with people, that it actually started off really well, I think. But then as numbers started to escalate, especially as we moved into the fall, people started to get a little nervous about meeting in houses and hosting home groups. And so a lot of those home groups actually switched to just Zoom home groups. And it was still great to have some sort of community, but it wasn't kind of that early church feel that I had kind of anticipated and hoped for. But then also at that time, we were pre-recording everything. So we would pre-record our music, and then I would actually preach on Thursdays, which I want to talk about that in just a second. But I would preach on Thursdays and then put the whole thing together on Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday, it would show up at 10:30. So that's what we did over the summer. We also, during this time, wanted to have, I think, monthly, maybe even bi-monthly outreach events. And the weather did not cooperate, I'll just say that. And so at the beginning of June, I kind of skipped over this, but at the beginning of June, we were able to set up all of our equipment at the largest campus in our family of churches, which is here in Akron, which is actually where I'm sitting in right now. I'm sitting in the video studio, which is where we recorded all of our video announcements, and we called them host moments. And just any kind of standard video announcement that we had, we would film it in here. And then the worship was filmed in the gymnasium. We had our stuff set up in there, which was all of the equipment that we were using before COVID. And then I would preach at another campus and was recorded by their video team, like I said, on Thursdays, which was not ideal. But then we moved into the third and final phase, where we've been ever since August. August 30th was the official launch of our church. And so we decided, hey, we're not going to push this off anymore. Even though we're still online, we're just going to officially launch. And so that was the birthday of our church. Our launch day service was absolutely terrible. It's funny, I can laugh about that now. That was like a really that really bothered me for months after that first service. And I have a completely separate video I want to make about that with our worship leader. Everyone who was involved in that service, I'm so thankful for. They did great. I'll link to it up here. It came out great, but when it streamed online, it was just a train wreck and a disaster. That'll be a whole nother video, but I'm sure even if we were meeting in person, I know there's always launch day horror stories, and so even launching online, we're no different in that aspect. But let me quickly tell you about what we've been doing for the last 6 months. So starting August 30th, really the biggest switch was I switched from preaching pre-recorded to actually live. And so our services were not just kind of canned services that were put out to watch on Sundays, but they were actually live streamed services. We still pre-recorded the music, but then the preaching was live. The two biggest questions I was asked were, why do you pre-record music and why do you preach live? And so the reason we still pre-recorded the music, even though we were live streaming, was one, because we're still learning. And so we wanted to still continue to learn. Our worship team could come together and practice. And if things didn't go well, it's okay because they could do it again. They had a second chance. And we had a few re-records. Actually, real quick, let me show you my favorite blooper moment from our music.
I put my faith in Jesus.
So that's why we pre-recorded, so that stuff like that didn't show up online. But also because so many people on our worship team were involved intricately, whether they were leading a group or whether they were just part of a group, a home group, that if we would have had live worship, we would have been taking them away from their home groups. And so our home groups would have suffered if we did live music. This worked out great for us to be able to pre-record the music. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but that's how it worked for us. And then the biggest reason why I wanted to preach live on Sundays was one, just because it gave a few extra days of sermon prep, but also for me as a preacher, it just felt so fake to be preaching pre-recorded. Now, I'm sitting here doing that right now to a camera for a YouTube video. I'm not saying that we can't get messages across like that, and some people have completely different philosophies and they'd rather pre-record, and that's totally fine. But for me, I was never able to really feel like I was attached to the people that I was speaking to when everything was pre-recorded. When as soon as it was live, I just had that instant connection. It's funny, I've been wanting to make that switch for YouTube videos as well. Some of my friends are getting into the live streaming for YouTube, and I give them all the props for that. That terrifies me. I'd rather do things pre-recorded like this. And so I totally get pastors who would rather pre-record sermons instead of live stream. But for me, it was like just that instant connection and knowing that people were out there, or at least hoping people were out there watching as I was speaking, really helped me as a preacher. So essentially our Sunday mornings would be 2 videos with me preaching in between. So the whole first half of the service would be an edited video. And then the whole second part of the service after I preached was an edited video. And so for those of us who were there in person, which was just me and like 2 other people, we'd essentially play a video and then I'd preach live and then we'd play another video. The last few weeks, we actually invited our home groups to the in-person recording. And so everyone kind of got to see the behind the scenes and actually vlogged a little bit on one of those days. Here at the church, and look who I found pulling in at the same time. What's up?
Flat tire.
I know, exactly. The week that I make a big deal about everyone getting here at 9 o'clock and then I'm showing up at 9:20. Hey, but you too, so.
Yeah.
So this is where we've been recording out of for the last, how long have we been in this part? January?
Yeah, I think January.
Yes, it's January. We were in the gymnasium for the first several months and then we moved over into this side in January, which is a nicer setup, and I'm definitely gonna miss it.
Staff members showing up after the volunteers. These guys are on top of it.
They already got the TV set up. What's up?
Hey.
How's it going? All right, so we usually have 2 cameras, this one and this one. Once we started inviting people to the live recording, we started adding another camera over there. But I'm usually preaching just to this camera. But then the past couple weeks we've actually been, or no, just starting last week and this week, we started inviting people to the actual recording to be here live.
10, 5, 4, 3.
Good morning. Welcome back to another service here at the Chapel Nordonia. My name is Chase, and I'm one of the church planters here on our team of church planters in Nordonia. So glad that you're here to worship with us this morning. I brought this quick little illustration here. This is a Little Tykes basketball hoop. I'm not even gonna try and brag. I'm a beast on the Little Tykes hoop. Here we go. That would have been so embarrassing if I missed that. I can do dunks on the Little Tykes hoop. This is about the size of a grapefruit, so I have great ball handling skills with the Little Tykes hoop. But that's not worth bragging about, is it? Why? Because it's a Little Tykes hoop. The thought of an NBA scout watching me play on this Little Tykes hoop and being so impressed that he calls me to join the Cavs because of what I can do on this hoop is absolutely absurd. Listen to me, thinking that we've earned God's favor from a salvific standpoint because of our good works is like me thinking that an NBA scout is going to be impressed with my basketball ability on a Little Tykes hoop. All right, so we just finished the service.
Yes,
How'd it
sir.
go?
Doing well. Very well. Yeah. So one more live stream to go.
I know, it's crazy. We're just now getting the hang, I feel like, of how to do this the right way, and then now it's just about to be over. How'd it go?
Pretty good.
Cool.
Not bad for getting a flat tire.
I know, right? Seriously. The horrible morning, it ended up resulting in a good service. All right, so now that we're done, I can kind of explain a little bit more about what we've been doing. So we started here, so now when I preach live, I alternate from talking to this camera to talking over here to this camera, and then the camera operators back there will switch the feed, and so it feels natural. So that's what all my Sunday mornings have looked like for the last really 6 months. And then I'm usually here for a couple hours after just editing the service. So I usually get out of here around 2:30-ish or something like that. So got 16 minutes left on this export, and then I got to upload it. While I've enjoyed the creative outlet that is editing these services, that's one thing that I absolutely am not gonna miss, and that's editing all of the worship components. I mean, I won't even say how long I was spending, but I was spending way more than I need to be spending editing every single Friday, because we would record on Thursday night. And so that's one element I'm not gonna miss. But we're on to the next chapter of the Chapel Nordonia. Full transparency, there were like 6, maybe even 10 times over the last 6 months that I started vlogging on a Sunday morning because I wanted to, show the behind the scenes of what was going on. But I would always vlog the same thing. I'd vlog getting up in the morning, leaving the house, which I actually didn't do for that one. And then I would just completely forget to vlog the rest of the Sunday because there's just so much going on. So I'm glad I was able to get some of that and show you guys some of the behind the scenes. That's kind of what we did during our COVID ministry. So the first one was just one service with everyone. The second one was completely pre-recorded. And then the third phase was like our live streaming phase, which was probably my favorite, again, just because I think we were able to really have that connection with those who are watching. And then now, Lord willing, this Sunday, we'll be back in person. Thanks for watching this video. I've got a whole bunch of other videos about the church plant that I really want to make. Also, we just made an exciting announcement on our family vlog. And then I also interviewed a close friend of mine about a lot of the racial injustice that's going on in our world today. And so I want to post that video hopefully in the next couple weeks. But it's been great getting back into YouTube. One last thing I'll say, it's been interesting that I've been doing so much editing for our church, but not posting anything on this channel. So I feel like I'm editing all the time, but none of it's actually translating to my personal YouTube channel. So if you want to see a little bit more of what's going on, not really the behind the scenes, but the front of the scenes, is that what you say? I don't know. But if you want to see that, go subscribe to our church's YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that on the screen somewhere around here. It's called the Chapel Nordonia. And as always, I will see you guys on another video.